Dopamine, anything that stimulates dopamine is by nature self-reinforcing. That's why porn is addicting, lots of dopamine. Gambling is addicting, the possibility of winning, lots of dopamine. Social media is super addicting, and it stimulates that same reward center and it shoots it up 4x above baseline with no effort. We're tinkering with a system that is designed to only be tapped when we put in real effort. It's a piece of marketing that we were duped by, really, is what it is.
What's up, you guys? My name is Lauren Knight Hughes, and in today's conversation, I am bringing on the #1 expert who has helped literally thousands of people break their addiction to alcohol through understanding dopamine and its role in neuroscience. Before you think this is a support group or an AA meeting or anything like that, this is neuroscience, okay? And before you think that this may not be applicable to you, we are talking about something that affects every kind of addiction, whether that's to food, sugar, processed food. Personally, I think that the narrative around alcohol and not drinking is stale. I think it's outdated, and I do think that we need to question why 1 in 4 of us who drinks alcohol becomes an alcoholic. Why 9 out of 10 of us watching this right now knows somebody who is an alcoholic, whether that's a family member or a friend, and why pretty much everybody is currently on antidepressants or anti-anxiety. There's something going on here. This guest today, his name is Bardia. He is the #1 sobriety coach. His podcast is the #1 ranked sobriety podcast worldwide. Today, he goes into the exact role that dopamine plays in helping people break their addictions. Let's get into it.
Because alcohol stimulates the reward center, and the reward center through our biological evolution would only get stimulated when we did something good, meaning we made progress towards goals, we put in real effort to get a real outcome, we acquired resources, we had sex, we ate food, like great. This avatar, this system is designed to give us a hit of pleasure every time we do something good, to be like, okay, do more of that because that helps cultivate your survival and longevity. But alcohol comes in and it stimulates that same reward center and it shoots it up 4x above baseline, right? So if we have, like they say, we have 50 nanograms per deciliter of dopamine in our brain. To give you some context, if I come to you, Lauren, and I tell you, hey, we're going to have to let you go, like we're going in a different direction, right? So I just fire you from your job. Your dopamine is going to drop from a 50 to a 40. So you lose like 10 points of dopamine when life hits you with like a curveball. So that's like the sensitivity of the balance of this stuff, right? Because dopamine's tied to motivation. So it's like, motivation and pleasure. So when you get hit with a curveball, you lose that motivation. Like, fuck, what am I going to do, right? Now, if you're clinically depressed, they say your dopamine's at a 10, meaning like if you can't get out of bed, if you can't put your head up and you can't go take a piss or brush your teeth, you're stuck in bed, your dopamine levels are at a 10. Now, on the flip side, if you're having sex or you're eating your absolute favorite food, dopamine doubles basically from 50 to about 90 to 95. So real human life experiences, sex and your favorite food, that's kind of like the peak. Like, you're having amazing sex or eating the bombest food, your dopamine doubles. That's kind of the maximum that we're meant to experience. And the way dopamine works by nature is that it's self-reinforcing, right? It's all part of this crazy system that we inhabit. So when dopamine gets secreted or produced, it sends a signal to everything to say, reinforce that behavior. Dopamine, anything that stimulates dopamine is by nature self-reinforcing. That's why porn is addicting, lots of dopamine. Gambling is addicting, the possibility of winning, lots of dopamine. Social media is super addicting. Every time we get a novel hit in our feed that's funny or angry or crazy or stimulates something, dopamine. Alcohol, super addicting. So alcohol raises your dopamine to 190 to 200. Cocaine, a little bit more than that, around like 250. So with no effort, we're tinkering with a system that is designed to only be tapped when we put in real effort. Focus, energy, concentration, go after your mate, go after resources, problem solve something, make forward progress towards something meaningful, get a hit of pleasure, But then alcohol comes in and you just go to the store, $5-10, easy, no effort, jackpot goes off in your brain. You're doing something really good, Barty. You're doing something really good, Lauren. And that in of itself is addicting, right? And then the way it's marketed to us is where the scam is. Like, oh, well, you've been working really hard. Look, you just finished a work day. You deserve to relax. You deserve to be rewarded. It's like, no, you don't. That's just part of being a human. Deserve to be rewarded when you put in the effort to experience the reward. It's a piece of marketing that we were duped by, really, is what it is. We're not born drinking alcohol. Somebody tells us, hey, you should drink this stuff. You model it from your parents. You watch commercials. You do monkey see, monkey do with your buddy in high school. So it's not like alcohol is primary or like a necessary component to this reality. So we're force-fed, we're marketed. And then when you don't know how to mentally and emotionally regulate, when you don't know how to manage your stress, when you grow up and you have all these traumatic experiences as a child because your parents are super overbearing or super religious and don't let you do anything, or they themselves don't know how to manage and process emotions because their parents came from the Great Depression and emotions weren't even a thing. You suck everything up, right? Yeah. And then you get into high school and you've never felt a real sense of calm. You've never felt a real sense of love and safety and connection and support. Then all of a sudden you drink alcohol, fucking for the first time, life becomes colorful because now your brain's flooded with pleasure and reward and oxytocin and serotonin. And it's like, wow, I've just found the solution to all my problems, Yeah. And then boom, so goes the story. You follow like cattle. We're herded through the system in high school and then in college, and this is just culture. This is what you do. And then in every piece of media, right, like the matrix of our society, in every piece of media, your phone, movies, music, television, it's just drink after drink, drink after drink. It's like, oh, well, it makes sense as to why everybody's just doing it.
We are literally stuck in this system that's like a false reality. It's not real. Like, we live in a world where the only reason we drink, to your point, as early as we do, is because that's what everyone around us and everything around us tells us to do subconsciously. And it's through the smallest little things. And that's where I think I started to pick up on it. I picked up on it because I started seeing one of my family members falling apart from alcohol. And then I would like go to my boyfriend's house at the time and then be really sad about it and bummed, and I didn't know what to do. And we'd talk about it over drinks.
Right.
Like, the irony.
Yeah. The
thing is, though, is that people categorize people, I've noticed, into healthy drinkers or problem drinkers. And though I see that, I understand that there are people, like, I think if people have a healthy relationship with any substance, you have to pick your vice. Cool, right? But like, alcohol is inherently designed to make us addicted to it. It's ethanol. Like, no one's going to do well from drinking it. And so this false reality that we live in, that there are people that are like, normal because they don't get too effed up when they drink, isn't correct. I actually, now that I see it the way I do, like, I think the people that have intense reactions or big reactions through their body are actually a bit more normal because that's a normal response. But we have it flipped backwards because that's what everybody does. And that's what the ads say and everything else.
Yeah. It's really backwards. And it isn't until you step outside of it that you begin to see it for what it is. But when you're in it, you're just riding the dopamine wave. You're going to ride this dopamine wave and you're going to keep drinking and thinking everybody who doesn't drink is fucking crazy and has a problem. And then eventually you're going to get to the point where the pleasure starts to diminish and the pain starts to increase. And that happens for everybody at some point. And once that does happen, then you begin to see it's like, oh, alcohol's not as cool as everybody makes it seem.
Isn't it Huberman who says, like, you got to be careful of the quick dopamine rushes? Yeah. It's never free.
Yeah.
It's never free.
It's never free. It has to be earned.
Yeah. It has to be earned. With the matrix, when you mentioned the alcohol matrix, I think we're on the same page with this, where it's like, we are in this society where everything around us, everything that our friends know and our friends talk about and our family and our family's family and our bosses and our coworkers and anybody we've ever dated enjoys alcohol as a pastime. And we don't see it as this like menacing substance because it's like equivalent to having cereal in the morning, which is also not a great substance actually. But it's the same sort of thing, and that we've been told otherwise.
Yeah.
Right? When you decided to stop drinking, did you see it that way for a long time, or did you have to get to a point where you started to then see the world through a different lens and shift your paradigm to see it that way, to then decide to change?
Yeah, that's actually a really great point. When I first quit drinking, I didn't see it the way that I see it now. My entire perspective around alcohol has continually shifted and elevated and adapted and evolved the longer that I've stayed sober. I see it from such a spiritual perspective now. Before I could only see what was in front of me. Having this thing in my life or not in my life and affect my immediate moment, my immediate surroundings, this immediate barbecue, this immediate vacation, this immediate wedding. And I couldn't see the bigger picture. Now that I'm almost 3 years sober, and now what I see alcohol as is alcohol's the Trojan horse of our modern society. It's the thing. And I don't know if there's many things that compare to it, because everybody drinks. It's woven into the fabric of every aspect of human nature. After work, right? So work is a major spoke of life. So work, socializing there. The fabric of all human connection between your family connection, your friendships, your social circle, right? What you do in your free time. How a human being handles their free time is a major determining factor around the progress of their life and the quality of life they live, and the resources they're able to contribute to society and acquire back for themselves. Dude, it's everywhere. It's woven into the fabric of everything, right? And so it's the way I see it is alcohol is this thing that doesn't allow human beings to really unify, and really come together. Even though we think we're doing it through alcohol, we're not really, because we're all just getting high individually. When you look deeper, right? It's
That makes sense.
We all go to a bar every Friday and we think we're having a great time. As soon as you remove the alcohol, nobody's going to show up to that bar, and none of those people who are talking to each other would actually have anything in common. Right? So it's dude, when you really start looking beyond the matrix of it all, it's what I say is alcohol is procrastination against your personal evolution. Alcohol is the thing that human beings use it's like the go-to crutch for everything. Oh, you have social anxiety and you can't connect with people? Okay, well then rather than leveling up, increasing your confidence, working through your trauma, working through your increasing your self-esteem, becoming a person of value, learning how to communicate, staying abreast of political events or social social topics for you to be able to connect with people, right? Working through little Johnny bullying you, when you were 9 years old on the playground, instead of doing all those things that are going to make you a more full expression of who you are, we just use alcohol as a crutch. And so that you become permanently stunted at 14, 15, 16 years old when we all start drinking. Rather than developing these aspects of ourselves, we become dependent on this drug, right? How many millions of people hate their job? How many millions of people, are constantly complaining about all these little things, yet they're drinking, on a cadence of drinking? And so it's well, what comes first, the chicken or the egg? Are they drinking because their life sucks, or their life sucks because they're drinking? Well, it's dude, if you just remove alcohol, what it finally does is it clears the space for you to return home to yourself, to begin addressing being an adult and taking ownership and taking responsibility for everything, your mindset, your emotional system. But it's hard to do those things in a way that really moves the needle and makes an impact when you're just getting fucked up all the time.
It is the single most life-changing decision I've ever made in my life. I quit drinking when I was 26, I think, and really just cut it cold turkey. I was not an alcoholic, right, by social standards. I was a binge drinker, though, meaning on the weekends, how you do in college. We all do that. You go do the weekend thing and you're kind of a weekend warrior. The way it changed the way my brain functioned, the actual thoughts that I think is the thing I think that changes so much, because to your point, you're like, I don't know, dude, you're like stunted. It's like when you hit 14, like you said, you have this version of the way that you think. And it's not until you kind of like, at least for me, broke out of those patterns because I changed my lifestyle and I no longer was just like drinking on the weekends for fun. Suddenly it was like this new version of myself, and this new version of reality unfolded, and everything got better. Like everything got better. And I think a lot of people think that if you stop drinking, things get worse. You get lonelier, you get bored. I hear that a lot. I used to worry about that. Maybe you feel like isolated, or it's like such a part of your identity that the concept of not drinking is like not really even possible,
Yeah.
because it's such a identity piece for
Totally.
us, and like that. Was that how it was for you when you were considering not drinking?
Yeah, like when I tried to do those stints and stuff like without alcohol, yeah, there was boredom and all those things. And I think most of us experience that one from a neurochemical side. So if alcohol has woven its claws and tentacles into like every aspect of our life, then we have to learn how to live without alcohol. How we socialize, how we manage our free time, like how we,
Yeah.
go on adventures. So, what we do to manage stress and boredom and all that stuff. You have to look at the complete map. You got to look at the full picture. And that's what humans are really bad at. They look at alcohol for the 15, 20, 30-minute dopamine rush and stress relief, and they conveniently forget about all the downstream consequences, second and third order consequences, the hangover, the lost energy, the brain fog, lost productivity, lost time, lost money, lost opportunity, lost proactivity, and they just focus on like, oh, but it's fun. And it's like, it's such a bad trade-off. That fun is so expensive. It's like putting in $100 and getting $1 back, really, or $10 back. It's a poor trade-off.
Why do we think that we do that? Is that dopamine rush?
Yeah, it's
That's the
dopamine.
thing that's pushing.
Yeah, and that's why alcohol is a Trojan horse, right? It's like it's wrapped really shiny through all the marketing and conditioning, right? That like, hey, this thing is like good for you, and it's cool, and it's sexy and sophisticated, and it's part of the end game, and it's what rich and wealthy people do. They sit around and they jerk themselves off around this bottle of wine and just like nonsense.
I keep coming back to this concept of connectivity, and that goes back to community. Dude, I'm just finding like people need people.
People need people.
We just need people.
Yeah.
And that's the
The
thing.
human
is like,
connection piece is so, so important.
you can't replace it. Like nothing can replace that. And I think that's where a lot of people find themselves lost. We're all in this life where we're all siloed in these. I mean, I don't know if you live alone, but you're in an apartment. Like I'm in an apartment. Like we don't live in a society where we foster much connection anymore that's real and just spontaneous, I think. And I think that's what causes so many people to then, like you said, need a dopamine rush. I mean, dude, it's freaking lonely. You get to work, you go to work, no one understands you, and you go home alone. Like, that sucks.
Yeah, like they did this study, I don't know, Rat Park. Have you heard of it? The amusement park thing study they did?
I don't think so. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's really interesting, right? They took a bunch of rats, they put them in this, like, cage or whatever. They fed them water and cocaine, and by the end of the trial, like all of them were addicted to cocaine. Because they choose the cocaine water for the high, for the rush. Eventually leading to addiction and potentially killing themselves. Then they took like the same group of rats and they put them in this huge, like what seemed like Disneyland for rats, with tons of other rats and, adventure and, just connection. And they had the cocaine water and the regular water, and they found that addiction rates basically like went to almost zero. And they found that like when rats were in constant connection and communication with others, they didn't even care for the drug. Whereas before, when they were like isolated, they did.